right. Well, welcome to the sneak peek of the Clayton Tyner podcast. I'm so excited to get started. I'm calling this episode 0. So this is not the grand opening. This isn't the big launch. This is kind of the soft opening to let you guys know a little bit what to expect when the podcast really gets rolling. So I want to welcome you in. I am your host, Clayton Tyner. I want to welcome you to episode 0, to the in-home studio where there are dogs and cats and lawnmowers and who knows what else you might hear along the way. But I really am so glad for everyone who's tuned in and everyone who will listen to this in the future. I thought that I'd keep today as short as I could and kind of do like a who, why, what, when, and where. Just kind of walk through that really simply to prepare us to set expectations for what might be coming in the future, and to give you an idea if this is something that you might be interested in subscribing to, or that you could see being really helpful to your life. So I want to just jump right in and let you know that who I am is a pastor here in San Antonio, Texas. I've lived here for about 8 years now. 2 years ago, my wife and I, Katie, along with some like-minded people, we set out and planted MetaChurch. At MetaChurch, we meet together and we move together. We're really focused on reaching people who wouldn't generally attend church. And it is an incredible, incredible honor to work there as the lead pastor. And really, that is a role that I play. But to really know me, you have to know about my greatest role. Who am I? I am a family man, and I'm so proud of it. We are a family of 5. Katie and I are raising 3 kids. Lane is 16 years old, which is just insane. He is driving now, which is so helpful. Lane is a straight A student. He is a deep thinker. It has been such an incredible joy to parent him. I also can't wait for like 5 years down the road where we can transition to straight up bros. Like I really feel like Lane will be one of my absolute best friends, and I love being his parent, and I can't wait to also just really get to embrace him as a friend. And we get to do that a little bit right now, but you gotta keep everything in line and in order. Paxton is 11 years old. He'll be 12 pretty soon. He has more charisma than anyone should be able to put in like 4 foot 8 inches of a body. He's an incredible athlete. He excels at everything that he tries, and he's a baller. So he's a basketball player. I can still get him right now. I still got him in one-on-one. Got like a 1.5 foot on him, so that's good news. But the day is coming, and it's coming quickly, where he will break my ankles and block my shot, and I will be infuriated, but I'll also be proud. So that's Paxton. Kimberly is 8 years old. We adopted Kimberly about 3.5 years ago, and she'll be 9 soon. I guess it's almost 4 years ago we adopted her. And although she's been in our family for 4 years now, there's no doubt that Kimberly was created to be a part of our family and to be our daughter, to be the sister to Lane and to Paxton. And I'm so proud of my kids. I love my kids. I will talk about my kids a lot if that's a problem. Probably won't be your favorite podcast, but they mean so much to me. And I'm so excited to get to share some of their life with you as well. All right. That brings me to Katie. Katie and I have been married going on 9 years now, and she is one of the most incredibly patient, sweet, smart, servant-hearted people I've ever met in my life. I knew that Katie was incredibly unique and was so significantly special the very, very first time that I met her. And from the very first time I met her until she said, I do, I pursued marrying her with everything that I had. And I know, like, everyone thinks that you have the ultimate love story. And I just want to tell you, congratulations on second place. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with second place. All right. Katie and I have a love story for the ages, and it is only just beginning. Katie is our social action coordinator at MetaChurch. And because of her heart, because of her love, because of her strategy and her intelligence, she has given MetaChurch an incredible footprint in the community of San Antonio. It is often that when nonprofits need help or advice or volunteers, that Katie will be the first person that they call. And so Katie and I, we came from the same very small town. I'm not going to share too much about who I am because if you listen throughout, our time we spend together on this podcast, I'll be able to share a lot more about where I came from, my family of origin, my current family, hobbies, likes, dislikes. We'll go deep, man. I'll share all kinds of things. And but for now, that's what you need to know. Family man, 3 kids, 1 beautiful wife, and I am the lead pastor at MetaChurch. MetaChurch meets on the west side of San Antonio, right across from SeaWorld. We also meet in a suburb of San Antonio called Helotes, Texas. And we started a little over 2 years ago, and we are laser focused on reaching people that most churches are not being intentional about reaching. And so if you are unchurched or dechurched, if you are skeptic or agnostic, when you show up to MetaChurch, what you'll realize is this isn't a congregation that allows you to come or like, we'll make an exception. You're not really church material, but you can come in. No. When you come to MetaChurch, what you realize is that this entire thing, like every fiber of our being, everything that we program, every part of our strategy, every ministry that we put together, it is all designed for you. Now, it doesn't mean church people can't come. It just means that if you are churched and you're already convinced about the faith and about Jesus and about God and the Holy Spirit, you have to be willing to get on board with that mission, that this church is not about you. This church is about serving Jesus through reaching the people who haven't heard about him yet. Our mission statement is really simple. We say, we do whatever it takes to get people to Jesus. And as I've already mentioned, it is just a giant, giant honor in my life to get to be the lead pastor at MetaChurch, to work on a staff of people who every day wake up trying to think of new and innovative ways to reach our community, and to be a part of a congregation of beautiful, powerful, purposeful people. All of us so imperfect, but trying every day to get closer and closer to the person that God created us to be and to follow the purpose that he created us with. So that is a little bit about who I am. And again, if this is something that you really end up subscribing to and listening to on a regular basis, I will go much, much deeper than that throughout the weeks and months and hopefully years that we can keep this podcast going. But that leads us to why am I actually starting a podcast? Now, the unofficial tagline, and maybe it'll become official, but really kind of the microscript of what I want to do on this podcast is I want to explore what matters. I want to explore what matters. Now, I did what everyone does when they start a podcast, and I got on YouTube and I watched how to start a podcast and the 5 things you need to know and the 10 things before you start. And everyone says the same thing. To grow your audience or to reach more people, you have to be really, really specific. You have to be like a podcast about, what brand and percentage of milk is the best, right? And that's what you do. And so you just really narrowly focus it. It's like, what are the best dartboards or whatever, like really, really niche specific thing. And that's what everyone says you have to do. Do not go too broad. And so I'm already breaking podcasting rules, YouTube rules, because this is going to be pretty broad. I want to explore what matters because if we are honest, we all spend an incredible amount of time exploring what does not matter. I mean, I'm like everyone else. I spend a lot of time binging shows and scrolling screens, just working my way through endless feeds that have no edifying content. They don't do anything to move me forward in life. They don't create progress. As a matter of fact, they normally just create things like insecurity because you don't have what other people have and you don't look how other people look. They create scarcity because all of a sudden I find like 10 things that are advertised specifically for me. Like I can't live without them. I didn't even know they existed, except I freaking got on Facebook. And now here I am spending that money. And so we spend a lot of time doing things that don't matter. And I am starting with a core assumption. The core assumption is something like this: your life matters. And I realize that I'm talking to however many people are listening to this stream, and however many people listen to this after the stream, and however many people listen to it on audio podcasts. And so it's like, how could I possibly know that? Well, I'm starting with a core assumption that we were created on purpose and that we were created for purpose. So we're not here by accident, and we have a job to do. We have a significant purpose to pursue. We have a potential that is probably unimaginable to us. And if our lives matter, then we need to explore thoughts and ideas and truths that matter. Because those thoughts and those ideas, these frameworks for how we make decisions and plan our relationships and execute our careers, these truths that are the bedrock for foundation and the bedrock for life, they are what guide us towards that purpose and towards that potential. This is what I do in my role at MetaChurch. I have a platform. It's a giant blessing to have a platform every Sunday to get up, to start in scripture, usually the Christian scripture, sometimes the Jewish scriptures, or what the church will call the Old Testament, right? And to dig in and to lay out these truths that guide our lives. And however you feel about the idea of God and faith and theism versus atheism versus anti-theism versus all of those things, it is just obviously true that there are ways to live life that lead to success, happiness, and fulfillment. And there are ways to live life that lead to a life that implodes on itself. And all you have to do is take a cursory look around at the world, and that is true. Even if you don't believe in objective truth, it's like there is enough evidence to support that you have to acknowledge it. It at least looks a whole lot like truth. And if you do believe in objective truth, that is one of them, that there are pathways to live life, and they start in your mind. They start by thinking deeply about things. And so that's what I want to do. I want to think as deep as I know how. And I don't know how deep that is on every subject. And there's going to be people who listen to this who can think a whole lot deeper than I can. And I am excited to meet you and to learn from you. And I'm going to bring people on this podcast who are like miles ahead of me on journeys towards different topics. And I'm going to sit back with you guys and we're just going to learn. And so I want to dive really deep, but I don't just want to stay deep, right? And that's a danger in like intellectualism, and there's really no danger of intellectualism on here, because you have to start with someone who is highly intellectual. And so what we're going to do is dive as deep as like a normal dude knows how to dive. And then we're going to emerge. And that's really important, because we got to come back to the surface and apply it. And a lot of times we want to just sit in the land of theory, right? Like, man, these ideas are so cool. And we've broken them down into all of their different component parts. And we have fragmented these out, and we have parsed every part of the truth, and we've tried to apply it in as many different ways as possible. And it's like, great. We've applied it in theory. Now we have to apply it in your real life. And so we dive deep, but we come back up, and here's the goal. And we'll see how good we do at this. But the goal is, by the end of each podcast, to have some meaningful application of how this matters in real life. How does this affect me in my career? How does this affect me in my family? How does this affect me in my parenting? How does this affect me in my faith? Dive deep, but come back to the surface. Why am I starting a podcast? One of the reasons I'm starting this is because I want to give some form to something that I've always seen as a bit of a dysfunction in my own life. I am a daydreamer. And when I say that, I mean, it takes every bit of energy inside of me to stop daydreaming. And that can be a real problem, because you grow up and you have responsibilities, and you have kids, and you have a career, and you have a wife, and you have things that require a lot of your attention. And if you can't stop daydreaming, then your attention is divided and you can't do your things well. And so a lot of my life has been building mechanisms around myself to be able to stop myself from constantly dreaming. And it's a very odd version of daydreaming, because there's this measurement that I don't know exactly how new of an idea this is, but I know, at least anecdotally from having different conversations with a wide variety of people, that this is true. And they call it VIV. That's the name for this idea of visual imagery vividness. And basically it's the idea that people exist on this scale of how well they can picture things in their mind. And so I have a really simple image of this, and this is like a scale. And if you're listening to this on audio only, it's basically a 5-part scale. And part number 1, it shows an apple, and it is like a photograph of an apple. You can tell that it has dimension to it. There's a shadow on it. It's glistening. There's like little droplets of water coming down of it. It's a photograph. And then number 2, it gets like more cartoonish. It's still very clearly an apple. It's still in color. And then number 3, it loses all of its color and it becomes very blurry around the edges. And number 4, if you didn't know you were looking at an apple, you wouldn't really know what you're looking at. And number 5, there's literally nothing there. And this is just a general scale to say that there is a sliding scale of how well people can picture things in their mind. And so if you're someone who's a number 1 and you can close your eyes and picture an apple and see a real freaking apple. It's like actually there. It's in 3D and you can see the shadow being cast by whatever else is in the room. And you can see like the morning dew dripping off of it. You know what I'm saying? Like making myself hungry for an apple right now. Then it will break your brain to even imagine that someone could be a 5. If you can see like photographically this vivid image in your mind, it will break your brain to even consider that someone could think about an apple and see nothing in their mind. And on the other side of that, there are people who are a 5, which is when they think about an apple, they don't see it. They think in thoughts. They think in words. It's hard to even describe what a 5 thinks in. But for a 5, it's like you're telling me that people can close their eyes and see things in their mind? Like that's a like superpower. That's like magic, right? And I see this in my marriage because Katie can walk into an empty room in a house, nothing on the walls, no furniture, no rugs. And she's looking at the room. Her eyes are open. She's looking at it, but she's not seeing the room. She's seeing what the room could be. She is seeing the couch in the room and how it sits on the rug and where the coffee table goes on that rug and where the coffee table sits in position to the TV stand and what kind of TV needs to go on the stand and what the walls need to be painted and what pictures need to be hung on the wall. And she can actually see it. And so, I'm like somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4.5, which means I can't see it. I don't even try. It's like, it blows my mind to watch her do this. And so I bring that up to say, what I'm saying is daydreaming is really just thinking. It's not vivid. I'm not seeing any pictures and I'm doing it constantly. And most of it is like rubbish. It's not useful to anything. I will stop myself and think, what am I doing thinking about that? That is so useless. It's such useless information. And so we won't talk about that on the podcast, but there are also things I think deeply about that I think have made a big difference in my life. And I've realized that one of the greatest blessings in my life is that people have come into my life who are much wiser than me and much further along in this journey of life than me. And they've done 2 things that have made a gigantic difference in my life. Number 1, they've put an arm around my shoulders, like just the metaphor of them bringing me in and mentored me. So they've put arms around my shoulders and they've put books in my hands. Those are the 2 things. They've put arms around my shoulders and they've put books in my hands. And they've given me things to think about. They've given me the opportunity to explore things that matter and that matter greatly, to explore topics that create paths that if you're willing to walk down them and apply them, or at least to try, then they'll make a giant difference in every single area of your life. And so I have a deep desire to pass on what has helped me. And somewhere in like my mid to late 20s, I came to a startling realization. And that realization was that the vast majority of people who I knew, like personally knew, that I was around, the vast majority of those people were very unhappy in life. And happiness is not a great measurement for your life. And we're going to talk a lot about that on the podcast. But nevertheless, they were very unhappy in life. And they were very unfulfilled. And happiness has a very communal aspect to it because you can't really be happy alone. It's like happiness is like this web and it requires your family and your parenting and your marriage and your career and your hobbies and what you're good at and your purpose and your community and your social life. And, all of those things are really connected. And so they're not happy. And so all of those things are going wrong. And then they're not fulfilled. Right. And then I've just watched and I've observed and then I've just daydreamed. I've just thought like, what is going on here? Because I've seen people very unfulfilled come into a whole lot of money and actually be less fulfilled. And it's like, man, the world says that should fix their problem. I've seen people who have blown up on social media. It's like, oh my gosh, they're like an influencer or whatever, and they're less content. And I realized that there was something unique. And I'm using unique in the just most basic form of the definition, which is there was something I noticed that was different generally speaking, in my life than most of the people around me. And it was that I was generally happy and generally fulfilled. And it has nothing to do with me. And it has nothing to do with my circumstances, because I had a lot of reasons to be very unhappy. And I had a lot of reasons to feel less than fulfilled. And Katie and I have navigated more in the first 9 years of our marriage than many people will ever navigate in 50 years of marriage. We've been under financial hardships. I mean, we'll get into it in the podcast. We'll talk about a lot of things, but I mean, we spent the first 5 years of our marriage making money that was well below living wages for a family of four. We put our life together and we put our family together in a way that is both miraculous and far more challenging than the traditional route. We were, in our first 4 years of marriage, we were frivolously sued over a dozen times. I'm talking making below living wages with student debt that we can't even think about touching, and adding 6 figures of court costs on top of all of it. And in my career, I've been through some incredible lows and things that people, write books about, and things that go and make the paper, if people get too much wind of it. And the adoption journey was incredibly, incredibly painful. We were 3 years in. I mean, we were in line in another country to adopt, and it all came to an end. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't some level of privilege or the easy road or all of the things that the world markets you that will make your life easy that led to general happiness and general fulfillment. And I say general because I have days where I'm just pissed off and I'm in a bad mood. And it's like, it's not all of the time. And I want so badly to apply all of the things that I've learned. And I probably get it wrong more than I get it right. But it starts with a conversation, and it starts in your mind, and it starts with the willingness to section off some time in your life to think deeply and explore things that matter. And when you explore things that matter, you begin to build a framework for your life that, if you were to follow it, would make your life significantly better, significantly happier, and significantly more fulfilled. And then you just have to do it. And you will do it imperfectly. And I probably get it wrong more than I get it right. But it's the striving towards an ideal that isn't all the crap that the world sells you about how your life is going to be easy and the right path to success, because all of that is crap. What it is it is a real framework that is tried and true. It is pathways for life that make a real difference. And by exploring what matters and coming to the surface and being willing to strive towards application, it can't just be the information, because information minus application is devastation. It is devastating to know the answer and get it wrong anyway. It is devastating to have someone hand you the map, hand you the compass, put you in the car, and still not make it to the destination. It's devastating. It is the striving towards application, striving towards an ideal that is outside of you and that is deeper than just what comes naturally to your mind. It's something that you have put together and thought through at a high level, pushed yourself to the limits of how you can think through these things, because they are worth that amount of attention. It's difficult to know how to truly apply things to your life until you have pushed yourself to the level of understanding them at every level you can understand them. And maybe you're miserable. Maybe you're not happy and you're not fulfilled. Maybe it pisses you off to even hear someone who is talk about it. I get that. I have been there. And maybe you are stuck. And I think that you can try everything else, but you should try exploring what matters. And it doesn't have to be on this podcast, but you should find something as a guide to help you explore what really matters in life. And I'm not saying don't watch Netflix, and I'm not saying, throw your smartphone out the window. I'm just saying, in addition to that, block off some time, explore what matters, dive deep into it, challenge yourself to build a framework, not just out of your own mind. Okay, so what is the content of the show going to be? Like, what are we actually going to do? I've kind of answered that a little bit. We're going to dive deep. We're going to explore topics. We're going to apply them. That is broad. I am a pastor. That is my vocation. And we'll talk about calling because that's a word that I think is abused a lot of times, but I'm going to say it now as my calling. However, this isn't going to be just Bible study. My faith is my North Star. It's going to come up all the time. I think that the Christian scriptures are the greatest documents ever compiled. They are miraculous in and of themselves. They're going to show up a lot. However, we're going to talk about a wide range of topics. We're going to talk about life and love and parenting and step parenting and adoptive parenting. We're going to talk apologetics. We're going to talk epistemology. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. We're going to jump in and we're going to dig in, and I'm very, very excited about it. I'm going to give a lot of book recommendations, and here's my pitch for reading or listening to, but reading books. Most of what I know has come from books or mentors, and probably the majority of that has come from books from mentors. And a book is such an incredible thing. And I know we are becoming a generation that doesn't read because we binge and we scroll. But a book is like the smartest people in every category of life, taking usually decades of research, time, and energy of doing what we're going to try to do, probing to the absolute depths of topics that matter, and then distilling all of their wisdom and all of their knowledge into 1, 2, or 300 pages, packaging it, and you can get it for like $15. Books are unbelievable opportunities to expand your perspective and live a better life. And so I'm going to give a lot of book recommendations, and I hope that we become a community of people who think deeply and read a lot. I think that's a great way to live. Think deeply, read a lot, and then go binge Netflix and scroll your phone and love your kids and date your wife and date your husband and do the right things. But add that. If you can add that to your life, you can make a significant difference. As far as the format of the podcast, it is going to be long form. And, I'm holding all of this loosely because I don't really know how to do this. I'm just starting a podcast and it could change over time. I'm planning on doing it live like we're doing right now, which makes me very nervous, but I'm planning on doing it live. I'm planning on having it long form, which means you can expect at least an hour. And if that's too long for you, then just don't watch it live and come back later and either watch it or listen to it on 2 times speed. And I'll sound like a chipmunk. And instead of an hour and a half, it'll take you 45 minutes and you can still dive deeply and then come back to the surface and hopefully apply some things to your life. And I got to tell you, I have no idea if anyone will even listen to this or if anyone will even watch it. And, I see some people over there, Lee Wong, who's like a great friend of mine and a pastor here in San Antonio, and Efren Sosa, who's on the board at MetaChurch, and Brian Street, who's one of my close friends and was the resident director of my dorm in college and is such a cool guy, B Street. So it's like some people are listening at least to this one, but I don't know. I don't know how many people will tune in on a weekly basis, but if we say like one thing on here that helps one person, I think that's a gigantic win. And if I can share one thing that's been shared with me over the years that helps someone live an incrementally better life, I just think, man, I think that's an incredible opportunity. And I think it's well worth jumping on this live video for an hour or so. And so that's basically the content. And normally it's going to be me on here and it's going to be kind of like this, but I also plan on bringing on guests. I have some that I'm beginning to line up. I'm very excited about people that you're going to love to hear from and to listen to, and we're going to have great conversations. And so last is when and where can I find it? So when can I find it and where can I find it? The plan right now is to go live Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Now, the live part of it really isn't all that important in a podcast. A podcast is meant to live forever. And so you might be listening to this years from now, and that's fantastic. Hopefully, most of the content is very evergreen, right? You can listen to it no matter where you're at and what time in life you're at. So, but if you want to watch it live or you want to interact in the chat, then that will be Tuesdays at 1. Now, I am a pastor full-time, which means that sometimes people get sick and I go visit them in the hospital, or there are funerals, or someone is in a crisis. And so I cannot promise every single Tuesday at 1 for the rest of time I'll be on here. I'm also going to take vacations. I'm also going to take breaks. And so the general rule is going to be Tuesdays at 1, and I'm very committed to that time slot. And so that is the plan, Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. And then there will be bonus episodes, and those will be somewhat at random, but they won't take the place of Tuesday at 1. They'll be in addition to that, because there is a chance that I can book a really cool guest but they have to do it at a different time. So we'll go live then, and then we'll still do the Tuesday podcast at 1:00. And you can find it on YouTube. And you can find that at youtube.com/Clayton Tyner. And then I'm still working on this. I'm very new to all of this, but I'm hoping even maybe by tomorrow, at minimum the end of this week, it will also be an audio only podcast on basically all of the podcast platforms. So Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon, all the places where people normally listen to audio podcasts. This is also going to be made available there. So you find it on YouTube. You can find it on wherever you listen to podcasts. And then I will stream to Facebook as well. I know some of you are watching this on Facebook right now. How can you help? How can you help this be a success? Number one, don't forget to subscribe, and specifically on YouTube. If you're watching this on Facebook right now, youtube.com/Clayton Tyner is in the description of the video. I would love for you to subscribe. That really helps. That's one of the things that I've learned. You can also hit the notification bell. That'll let you know if I go live in kind of a bonus episode. You'll get alerted about it, so you are aware of it. You can also subscribe once this goes onto the different podcast channels for audio, and you can follow me at Clayton Tyner, and that's Tyner, Clayton Tyner. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram. That way you'll know when a new episode's coming out. You'll know when they go live on audio format only. I'm really so grateful for all of you who jumped on here today, and I'm going to end. I obviously don't have a sponsor, right? It's like, I don't even know what I'm doing yet. So, but I do have a church, and I realize you might be listening to this podcast years from now. But right now, as of today, it's March 30th, 2021, and we're 5 days away from Easter. And MetaChurch is a place where if you're in the San Antonio area, we would love to see you at either one of our locations. The website for MetaChurch is also in the description of this video. But while I have you here, as like a captive audience and all of that, I wanted to show you a video that we put together to invite people to Easter. Do you ever wonder why you're here? Like, what does it all mean, or why does it all matter? What is your purpose, your meaning in life? These are some of the most basic questions that humans have wrestled with across time. What difference is my life making? What change am I actually affecting? I believe that your life matters far more than you can probably even imagine, that your time on earth can change things, impact lives, and leave behind a legacy. At MetaChurch, we are ordinary people, broken, jacked up people, but we are pursuing extraordinary purpose as a part of the movement of Jesus. So listen, I don't know who you are or where you've come from, but this is a place where you can come and wrestle with the biggest questions of life. MetaChurch is a place where you belong even before you believe, because we genuinely believe that you belong. We meet on Sundays at 2 different locations. The 151 Saloon at 9:45, 11:30, and 1:15, and the Helotes 4-H Event Center at 9:45 and 11:30. Your life is too important to not stop and consider why you're living it. I hope to see you on Sunday. So that's a little bit about MetaChurch. Now, you'll see the same core assumption drives both of these roles, my role as pastor and preacher at MetaChurch, and the reason for starting this podcast. Your life matters. And there are topics, truths, and ideas that also matter, and they're worth exploring to make sure that you make the most of the life that you've been given. I want to thank everyone who has listened to this. I want to invite you to go to www.metachurch.tv, where you can find out more about what we have going on. You can get the addresses to our locations. And if you're not in the San Antonio area, that's also a good starting place to find our Sunday morning stream. So we stream our services at both 9:45 and 11:30. That's it for episode 0, the sneak peek of the Clayton Tyner podcast. I love you guys, and I hope to see you back next week.